everybody, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with Stevie Storck today. She is one of our founding members in the WMNûp community membership. And if you haven't yet joined us inside, you need to. We would love to meet you. And there's so much cool stuff happening in this membership community already. And we are only in our second month. And we have some really amazing programming coming up in August, including a training and another tool resource for you to use, a template in your business to apply what we're learning in the training. And also our Slack thread is like popping off every day. It's so exciting to see. Women are celebrating things in their businesses and lives. We're having really important, powerful conversations, and there's so many collaborations and cool things happening. People have been hiring each other. I've been hearing about recently, which is so awesome and definitely aligns with the intention of what this community and space are intended to do. So I'm super excited to be here with you today, Stevie, and I can't wait to introduce you to everybody. So fun facts about us and how we know each other. First of all, we went to college together at Chatham College for Women, which is now co-ed, sadly. So sorry, you missed the boat if you wanted to be part of the all women's experience, but we got to be, which was really special and now feels even more special. And that was like 10 years ago that we met there. And then other fun fact is Stevie was my first ever coaching client, which is so cool. And I think about you often, the fact that like we got to be together at that really special time in both of our lives. And like, basically right after college when we were both figuring out like what we wanted to do and what kind of life we wanted to build. And it was so fun to support you with that. And to just have those early memories of coaching be something that you're associated with. And now like, we're back together in a way, which is really fun and cool.
United. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. It was so helpful.
So exciting.
Support during that time. Because like right after college, there's a lot going on, trying to figure out what your direction is going to be. So that was a great special time.
Yeah, for me too. I'm so glad we got to do that together. Okay, so your bio officially, I want to introduce you formally to everybody. So Stevie is a professional interior designer turned author and mother of two. After releasing a craft book and taking a pause from client design work during the pandemic, in 2022, she made a career pivot to writing and hosting local in-person events around the concepts of slow decorating and soulful seasonal living. At Imbolc, she held the first gathering of her cross-quarter club and released the issue of her mid-season journal, the first of 4 seasonal collections of blog posts that will be featured on her website throughout this year. She is also in the initial planning phase of creating a course on slow decorating, and she is navigating all of this while primarily being a stay-at-home mom to her 2 small daughters. I can't believe you have kids. Like, that's just like crazy to me.
I sometimes can't believe it either. Like when we became the adults in the room, it's a little bit disconcerting, but you know.
It's so weird, but I remember you always kind of knew, I think, that you wanted to, have a family and have kiddos and all of that. So it's been so cool to see like from a distance, all of those things coming to fruition. And even like, I remember when you bought your house and when you were like designing and like, doing the interior work and like renovating certain rooms and all of that. And now your garden is like so fun to watch that expand. So tell me a little bit about, there are a couple things that I want to make sure that we cover in this conversation. One is like, tell me about these cool events that you've been doing, because they look like, from what you're sharing about them, I'm like, can I teleport? Why am I not there? This looks so cool and right up my alley. So tell us a little bit about like, how did you get inspired to create these events, but also like what's happening at these events?
Definitely. So to get back to like how this was inspired, I actually need to go back to 2020, which I feel like, a lot of stuff has come out of that time for everyone. So during those initial lockdowns of 2020, I was obviously spending more time at home, and specifically more time outside. I was a new mom. I had a 15-month-old daughter at the time. So kind of getting to watch her discover the world and like taking a lot of walks and just being outside a lot, it really kind of sparked something in me. just kind of seeing the magic of her discovering everything for the first time. And I had also started gardening just a couple years before that. And I really fully leaned into that as my pandemic hobby. I like plants became my therapy. And like those two things together are what led me to wanting to live like a slower, more simpler pace of life and being very connected with the seasons of nature in a way that I hadn't really been doing before. Um, and as I got more and more into it, it just felt really right. I grew up on a farm on like the Pennsylvania Maryland line, and like that was my whole childhood. And like once I learned about the wheel of the year, like the idea of following like an agrarian based like circular calendar of the year just like really resonated with me. And as I've been learning more and more, this just feels like where I belong, I guess is
Mm-hmm.
and I think with the Cross Quarter Club, which was like inspired by all this, like it feels like I'm like tapping into something that's like just bigger than myself, and that is so like freeing to do. After like my former business, being an interior designer, was a lot about me and my skills and me solving these problems and creating this product or result. And it just feels so nice to be just like existing and being in community with other women and like focusing on these things that are like, they seem like small, simple things, but when you're doing them like mindfully and with intention and together, they can be really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I got inspired to create the Cross Quarter Club. Originally, I had been planning just to have like a seed share party with my friends in like February, like midwinter. That's such a bleak time. And I knew in the fall of 2021, I wanted to have something like that to look forward to get through the winter until I could like start gardening again.
Mm-hmm.
But just after like Christmas time in 2021, that idea started to like grow and get bigger and bigger I was like, oh, this might be something. So I started planning my first gathering, which was our midwinter gathering, and it was at Imbolc, uh, February 1st, January 30th. I kind of can't remember. We meet on Sundays. That's the most important thing. But that idea just kind of kept growing, and I wanted to have like a club, so it was like a recurring kind of thing, but very easy, like low, like easy access, low buy-in, as far as we only meet 4 times a year. It's on a Sunday afternoon. Like you just kind of come as you are and you have a chill evening or afternoon evening with a bunch of like-minded women. So at each of our gatherings, we do 3 different things. We have like a creative workshop component, a sharing activity, and then just community building, basically just time to chat over yummy food and drinks. The very first one, it was outside and in like below 40-degree weather. I
Oh
made
my
scones.
gosh.
I made scones and hot apple cider, which only ended up getting to be like lukewarm apple cider. The scones like froze solid, but so that shows you how cold it was and how committed
Wow.
the women that came to that day were to like, okay, they wanted communities so much that they were willing to bundle up and be outside in like the icy snow. We had so much fun at that one. We did have a fire there going, so we weren't completely freezing our butts off. But yeah, that was the first one, and I just felt like really, it just felt so aligned, and it felt like every woman that was there, we could each be our own like new best friends. It was like an instant kind of connection, and just like the conversation flowed, and it felt so good because it's like with all of this, it feels like it's like I'm facilitating it, like I'm creating space for it, but it's not about me. It's about like
Mhm.
what's going to happen, the people are going to come, the right conversations, and that kind of like flow is like how I want to live my life now. Like I'm
Absolutely.
definitely changed for it. So
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So exciting. And just hearing you speak about that, I relate so much to that feeling of like, it's bigger than me. And I like my job is to hold space and like show up and tend, but it's also like, I would imagine the process of raising a child, right? Like it came through me. It's not really me, but it's something else. It's bigger than me and will like outlive me and is different and like requires different things than just me, just my influence. And to really like have the idea come to life fully or like become all that it can be and reach its full potential, it it needs all the people who show up for it.
Village, yeah. And like I think that
Yeah,
villaging idea is like something that we need, like not just children, like adults
right.
and women especially really need it, because like we've moved so far away from that being like our standard operating procedure. And I think
Mhm.
that's really just kind of like the medicine that so many of us need now. So that's why I feel like such a purpose and like motivation to really like create that for like here in my local community.
Yes, and it's so important. Like I love what we're doing with the Women Up membership community that's like bigger and broader. But for me, like it feels so important to have it be locally rooted for me personally, almost like a selfish thing in a way, because I'm like, I know we need these like micro communities in real life to be able to like hug each other and be able to like see real humans and see faces like in real time and do something together, like even if it's just drinking coffee or like whatever it might be. But for you, it's like these hands-on activities that are so also just, I mean, there's so much research, I'm sure, on that of like the value of using our hands and being tactile with something and learning in that way. And I love what you've created. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I feel like exactly that way, because I feel like working with my hands, like it is like a mindfulness thing. And it's
Mhm.
also something I remember when we first joined our church. We go to a Unitarian Universalist church, and they said, like, you can meet people at church, but the way to really build relationships is to like work alongside each other, like doing something like a common goal. And like that really stuck with me, because it's also like, I'm an introvert. Like either I'm not very good at small talk. I like, if you want to talk deep, I can do that. But it's like, I don't know, I feel awkward in new social situations. So I was like, I
Yep.
need something where it's not like just networking, where we're like in a room and like we have to come up with something to say. It's like, we're here, we're doing something together, and then it just naturally flows. And that's been my experience. Like we've had 3 gatherings so far, and it's been like that. Like even introverted me, I feel completely comfortable and at ease. And it's just, the women
Mm.
that come are amazing. It's so much fun.
That's so awesome. I love that so much. It's so exciting to hear about like new communities of women forming. For me, I'm like, yay, more
Right?
everywhere, more. So I hope that this conversation and these ideas like really spark something in anyone who watches this who's feeling the pull to create that or be part of that in some way, because it's so important. This like I can't remember the exact way that you said it, like revillaging, is that the
Yeah.
word you used?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, it's so necessary. I mean, it's so bizarre that we live in like all of these individual houses. Like we don't know our neighbors.
Right, right. It's like hyper
It's so weird.
yeah. Right. And
It's just,
yeah. It puts so much pressure on us to do everything and be everything. And it's like we get that message like in America, like we are like, you can be anything you want to be, and like you can have it all, you can do it all. But I just
mhm.
realized, and I think motherhood has been a big thing for me, where it just like broke that idea open. And it's like, no, you actually can't, and you don't actually want to. So like learn how to accept some help, and like play to your strengths, and let other people play to theirs, and just like release some of that like perfectionism, and just realize that it's way more like sustainable for everybody if we're all kind of like sharing the load.
Mhm.
That's been a huge change in the last couple of years, like coming around to that idea.
Mhm. That's it. That is huge. And I'm curious because I know that this was something that was a common thread in the group when everybody was doing their introductions,
Mhm.
that it was like a bunch, a lot of the women in this community are moms and have all of these different hats that they wear outside of just being an entrepreneur or running a business or, creating something. Um, but I would love to hear your perspective and just like what you've learned maybe in the last 2 years of like you have 2 kids,
Mhm.
you're running a business, you were running a different business sort of, or in a different way at least pre-pandemic. Now so many things have shifted. You have this beautiful community of people coming together, and it sounds like this sort of like slow decorating, and I want to hear more about that too, but like this different pace almost has kind of like calibrated for you or
That's a
something.
good
And
word. It
I
has been,
think a lot of us are
yeah,
feeling that.
there's been a big recalibration in the last few years. Because it's
Mhm.
like, I remember talking to you, like I started my business in like 2014 while I still had a day job, because I knew I wanted to build something that would give me flexibility when I did have children. And
Mhm.
I felt like I did a pretty good job. My business was going well. I didn't stop
Mhm.
because like there wasn't like I didn't have enough clients or anything. Actually, in the pandemic, when more people were home, I had like more inquiries than ever. But also like right before that point, I had a couple like part-time remote like employees that were helping me. And then as the
Mhm.
pandemic wore on, those they were no longer able to do that. And I just kind of got to a point where it's like I can't do this without help unless like I completely, change everything. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. So I just need to hit pause and focus on where I'm most needed, which was at home with my kids. Because obviously, anyone who's a parent in the early days of 2020 knows that you just didn't have any reliable support. Even if you had family in the area, it was just like with the
Mhm.
quarantines and all that, it was just too much. And my kid wasn't school aged yet anyway. So I have nieces and nephews that are, and like it was just a wild time to be a parent. And I was like, I can't focus on anything else. I can't have anyone else expecting anything from me. I need like this is like my own like internal winter. I need to go into my little cave and just weather the storm. Um,
Mhm.
so I feel like I'm like starting to forget what you asked me about motherhood and everything. Okay.
Mhm.
So that yeah, like I only had one kid when the pandemic began, and um, because like I kind of knew I was taking a pause, or I wanted to work towards taking a pause from my career, we decided to have a second baby. And it wasn't until like I've been trying to take a break since I got pregnant with her, but I didn't actually successfully stop until after she was born. Um, like it's really hard to say no and slow down.
Mhm.
But actually like her birth and like the hard reset that is like adjusting to two children, which is like totally different than one. Like I feel like that's where my real like I finally like laid down all the stuff that like didn't fit anymore. I was like trying to like keep it together, and it was just like so stressful.
Mhm.
And I think out of that period where it was kind of like a fallow period, that's where these new like mindsets kind of could take root. Like I read a lot of books. Like I love books. I'm obsessed with reading, as like that's how I learn new ideas. Um, and just a lot of what I had previously thought just like completely was called into question. And I don't know, I just really changed a lot as a person during and after my second daughter was born. And I think that's what it is. Like it sometimes takes like a situation where you can't do it on your own, to like break down those walls of like I have to keep up appearances. Like I can't like ask for help because that's a sign of weakness, and just kind of like letting go of all that shame and just being like actually like this is what I need, and like I deserve support.
Mhm.
Like that is the biggest thing I think I've learned from motherhood, because before I was a mom, I just wanted everyone to think I could do it all the time by myself, and that I was special and different, and
Mhm.
there was one right way to do things. And like now that's just like all like completely washed away.
Mhm.
So
It's so interesting. And I love, like we were talking about sort of, as I was reading your bio, I'm noticing like slow is a theme. So like
mhm.
slow decorating and what I think there may have been,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
slow decorating and seasonal living. And tell me what does slow decorating mean? Because I feel like I haven't heard that term, even though I'm in the sort of slow movement, if you will, of all the other things. This one's
yeah.
new and exciting.
So I feel like the concept might be new, but in practice, it's probably what you're already doing, because
Mm.
we see like on HGTV and like on Instagram, like influencers, like they buy a house and they're immediately doing like all these huge renovations like right away. And it's like there's a kitchen and it takes them like 2 months, and it's like completely start to finish gutted and renovated and all that kind of stuff. And for the majority of people, that is not very realistic or accessible. And I'm
Right.
tired of like I feel like there was a time when I wanted to be like a DIY blogger, but I didn't see anybody that like reflected kind of my budget and my, I was in my early mid 20s. It's just not realistic unless you're going to take on like a mountain of debt, which is like I was very set on
Mhm.
doing that. So, it's kind of like what I've already been doing and like the approach I take for my own houses. And even when I worked with interior design clients, there were a lot of people that like they wouldn't hire me for the full project. They'd hire me to kind of create like a project guide that was like, okay, here's like your inspiration boards, here's your colors, here's a list of everything that you would need to buy for the room, like a floor plan with budget ranges and like everything that you need to kind of do it on your own. It's like I'm just kind of helping like with the kickstart and like the design direction and everything. So
Mhm.
that's basically like I've been thinking for years, like even when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I knew I needed to make like a course about this. It's just been like a slow, like, when do you have time to do that? Like you don't,
Mhm.
you have to make it a priority. So that's basically what my course is going to be about. It's going to be like 3 parts, which I should like look to make sure I'm saying this right. um, because where is that? Okay. So yeah, the first part is going to be like discover your style. Because I think that's where a lot of people like get really caught up and like where, they're working on their house, but it doesn't feel like it's coming together in a cohesive way, or they're just feeling like frustrated with like, where to start. So it's all going to be about like discovering your unique style, because I really think that your home should be an expression of who you are and like tell your story. And it shouldn't look like a catalog. It should look like you live there, you know?
Mhm.
And then the second part will be design your space, and I'll talk about like space planning is like probably my favorite thing in interior design. I feel like that's what I excel at, and kind of creating the focal points and like the idea of like essentialism to me is like there's like a room that has just enough furniture in it where it feels full. It doesn't feel empty, but it doesn't feel cluttered. And then it's like
Mhm.
once you add the layer of life stuff, especially if you have kids, like even with like in full use in life, it's still like a beautiful, calming space to be in.
Mhm.
So like that's my approach to interiors, and I feel like that is something that I can teach people. And then the part 3 is going to be decorate your room, and it's going to talk more about um, like styling tips and like what size to make buy curtains and rugs and like how to hang art and different kind of things like that. So
Mhm.
I just want to teach people, because it's like the average person can't afford to hire an interior designer. I couldn't afford to hire an interior designer if I wasn't one. So I think, and also everybody creates a home. No matter where you live, you're creating a home.
Right.
So just kind of giving people the tools to do that in a way that's like they're being guided, and like they know that the final result is going to be something that they really like, because it's just a thought process and like a mindful way to work through a project.
Mm. That's so awesome. And I feel like when we bought our house in March of 2021,
Mhm.
I was like feeling the pressure because what we moved into is like a much more traditional looking home. I think you've seen
Yeah,
pictures and
yeah.
things. And I like that about it. But then there's also like my style, though, is so not that. And so when we looked at our house originally, we did the walkthrough and everything, the woman who lived here had this sort of like more traditional style, but like some quirky little pieces here and there and like cool. It looked really cool, but I was like, I love this, but it's not my style. And so then coming into the space and trying to like work around
Mhm.
um even just like the kitchen. I'm like, I can't wait to redo this kitchen. Like it's so dark and heavy and it feels like my mom's idea of a cool kitchen and not mine. And like I want like light and bright and open and clean and minimal and modern and cool, you know.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to like work around those things and just kind of like focus on these like vignettes of like,
Mhm.
okay, what does an ideal dining room look like for us? Like this little space, like let's just get that solid. And then let's add like kind of plants and like working on these little
Mhm.
sections at a time. And
Yeah.
it's a lot, honestly. Like it's a lot to think about. And I felt the pressure to have it feel like home immediately. Like I was like, in the first 2 weeks, because I'm used to apartment living, right?
Yeah.
So like
You
when you
can.
move into an apartment, you get it set up and you get exactly everything you need. And it's usually like you work with what you have, but you might swap out a couple things and you're done and you feel like solid. And this was like, we have an Airbnb, which is like its whole own thing. Then we have our like offices independently. Then we have our bedroom. Then we have, and then like merging both of our styles together. And then, oh my gosh. And then like, what are the things that we should swap out first? Because they would be cheap, but like, or inexpensive, but not, but would make a big difference, right? Like would make an impact in the
Prioritizing like the
aesthetic.
biggest purchases that, yeah, are going to make the biggest impact.
And
No, I understand. It's
it's
overwhelming.
so much to think about. And it's so, it sounds silly when you like hear yourself thinking about it so much, but you're like, I want my home to feel like me. I want it to feel like, one, I live here, two, like even just little things like our couch that we have. Jeff bought this couch and he thought it was so great. And I'm like, I freaking hate this couch. And every time we lay on it, and we're like on it often because we're watching TV and we have this giant TV together. And this is like one of the things we do when we bond. And like, we're eating dinner in the kitchen, which is like open concept to the living room. And so there's like, I'm always seeing this freaking couch and I'm always interacting with it. And then he's like, oh, I get so sweaty on this couch. And I'm like, we need to get a new couch. But then we like can't decide on what kind of couch and what would make sense with the room and the feature and the accents and not make it feel like a sea of brown. I mean, it's like a whole thing that we've had a million conversations about, is this freaking couch.
Exactly. Your home is like the backdrop for your life, and
Yeah.
your outer environment very much like reflects and kind of intermingles with your inner environment. Like that's what I say about this room. This is my studio, and this room, it's like when our life starts to get crazy, this tends to be where like random crap gets shoved. And this room, like the state of this room is like a mirror for the state of my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I am like my goal right now is like every Monday I like make sure it's like nice and clean and tidy and organized, and like then I'm setting myself for a good week. And I feel like that's just like how like our relationships to our homes are like very important. And it is very overwhelming to like move from an apartment to a house. Like you have like 1/10 the amount of furniture you need to fit. And because we did the same thing. And it just takes time. It's not realistic to like like add like 60 items to cart, have it delivered, have it set up like the first month that you're in the house. It's just not realistic for like almost anyone. So, yeah, I feel like what I'm trying to do with my course is try to like take away some of that overwhelm, because even myself, and I will sometimes get in that too, because I will like sit in a room and be like, I'm not really sure what I want to do here. And like, this is so annoying. But I know as soon as I get out a piece of paper and draw it to scale, the solution is like immediate. Like, and I mean, I know I'm a trained interior designer, but also like that's something that anyone can learn how to do, which is like just draw their room out to scale. And then like, even like I did this all the time when I did client work. I would like cut out furniture out of graph paper. That way I could move it all around and like try out different ideas on paper. And then you can eliminate what's not going to work way easier than if you're actually moving furniture around. Plus that's exhausting. And just kind of you'll know exactly what you need to shop for before you go shopping, instead of like shopping as like, oh, would this work? Would that work? Like you already know what's going to fit, what your ideal layout is. And like, that's the starting point, that like, you can have the design and then maybe you have enough saved up to buy a couch, but everything else is going to have to wait. Or you can buy a couch new, but you're going to look for chairs secondhand, but you know what you're looking for then. And it's much easier. It's like a systematic approach to actually making progress, instead of just like, oh, that's cute, I'll buy that, I'll find a spot for it. Like that's kind of where it can get tricky to like make everything cohesive and like properly scaled for the space, when it's just a collection of things that you're drawn to, but might not be the best decision for that particular space. So yeah, you're getting me really excited about this. Like I need to spend more time working on it. That's been hard because I am like primarily like a stay-at-home mom, so I'm just trying to like do what I can in the time that I have. But like I know that idea has been coming for a long time. It just needs to be like,
yeah. So. Well, if you need someone to like prompt you with all the questions, I have them. I will gladly do that.
My like beta tester. It's
yeah.
A private course for Emily that we then
that translates to anyone. Yeah. I love it. It's so awesome. What did we not? Was there something that we didn't cover?
We didn't talk that much about my journal.
Which is
like related to my cross quarter club, but like slightly different. Well, it's not really that different. So basically my club was the idea that came first. And I just wanted to have like the kind of like, I mean, I could just host a dinner party, but like, are my friends going to want to do crafts projects with me? Probably not. So I'm just making these events that are like everything that I want to like celebrate the season. Like
Mhm.
I make different food and all this kind of stuff. But basically, everything that happens at the event is mirrored as a blog post. So it's like
Mm.
the main project that we do is a blog post, like recipes that I made for the event, that kind of stuff. Um, and I switched. So I can kind of say the mid-season journal, it's basically just a different way of delivering blog content instead of like having to post like every day or like every week even.
Mhm.
I'm like more batch working and then presenting them as like, here's a collection of posts that all kind of fit the same theme. I'm going to do this 4 times this year because that seems realistic and sustainable to me. And I hired a professional photographer this year who is like amazing. That was like part of it. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, it needs to be like really good imagery. And Brady
Mm.
is who I'm working with. He's like amazing. Um,
Mm.
so each journal, there's 2 DIY projects that are like home and garden related, 1 recipe, 1 interior design related post, and then 2 personal essays. And one of them includes journal prompts.
Mm.
And then 1 kind of like roundup post. I call it presently, and it's like just seasonal favorites. A lot of times it's books. The first issue I did like presently, reading, practicing, and enjoying.
Mm.
So it's just like a way to share like ideas. If there is any like affiliate links in there, it's usually to a book. um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's been a lot of fun to just kind of work within that framework of like 7 blog posts, doing it 4 times a year. But there's like the possibilities are kind of like endless. So I could see doing this for like a very long time.
That is super awesome.
Thank you.
I'm hearing like an echo on my, which I wasn't hearing before. Maybe it went away. It stopped. Okay, cool. That is super awesome. I remember looking at one of them and I may have reached out to you about it and been like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Like I could see this becoming like an actual book or
Yeah.
something. Like I just, it's so pretty and it's so like such a cool concept of having something. And I'm also just thinking as you're saying that, right? Like if people aren't near you and can't come experience it with you, like I could be doing that on my own. I could
Exactly.
make the things and feel part of it.
Because the point of everything I'm doing, it's like not supposed to be about me and me telling you how to do things. It's about like I'm just doing all the things that I want to do that make me feel alive, that make me like feel excited about the day, and I want to inspire you to do it your own way and to make it your own. And like even like
Mhm.
when I do like a tutorial or a recipe, I'm like I can't follow a recipe to save my life. Like I just have to improvise because that's just how I was made.
Mhm.
I'm like do it this way or like try something else. Like just make it your own. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
the spirit of all of this. I just don't feel attached to any like outcome. Like that's just not the point. The point is just to like get people excited and inspired to just like do things that they want to do and specifically things that make you feel connected to the seasons and like the land you live on and your local community and all
Mhm.
of that just feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know.
Mhm. And you're doing it so well. And it is like you said, like the medicine that we all need right now in this very like tech world where we're constantly behind screens and we're forgetting these very simple pleasures and like seeking all of this stimulation all the time. It's
Yeah.
like come back in, come back to the earth, come back to nature, come back to your body, come back to like what is real and true and sustaining versus and sort of like the most reliable changes that we can predict also with the seasons,
Yeah.
versus like the world feels like change in chaos mode all the time. And it feels actually quite grounding and um, centering and reassuring to know that like seasons change consistently and like there will probably always be this, and this available in this season, even when the world is
Exactly.
insane.
Yeah. Grounding is such like a word, like that's like such a like inspirational word to me in this because it's also just like um recognizing that like life is going to have ebbs and flows and like that life is like an endless cycle of like birth,
Mhm.
death, rebirth. Like that's the cycle and like we're all on that path. Like we think that we're like living this like linear existence, and the longer you cling to that, the more you're gonna suffer. Like at least in my experience. And just kind of
Absolutely.
recognizing that like this is the way this is the way we are designed or programmed or whatever, and it's in our DNA. We are cyclical beings, and embracing that is like so has just brought me a lot of peace.
Absolutely. Same. And I feel like it's a lesson I keep revisiting, relearning, and like spiraling deeper into. Just noticing all the things, especially now having a home and gardening and all this stuff that Jeff is up to with his planning the gardens constantly. And I'm like, I'm so grateful for that. And I'm like, okay, can we talk about literally anything else today besides the caterpillar that's now on this plant? Thank you. Like, it's so sweet. And also I'm like, it is so great. And then I'm like, and can we talk about anything else?
He's obsessed.
He's obsessed in like the best way. But yeah, it is such like, that's something for me too. Like recently I think you and I are on like some kind of crazy like life like parallel thing, because this year also for me, I'm sure you've seen this, but I've been going through all of these like evolutions of birth, death, rebirth, and in my business specifically, and in the offerings and in the way that I'm doing things, it's like it feels like it's always been there, but it's now refined in a different way. And I'm like, oh yeah, duh, like this is what it's actually about, not like soulful whatever. It's actually like aligning with the regenerative cycles of nature and the reciprocity that's happening all around us all the time, and the harmony of an ecosystem. And how do we like bring that perspective into how we create and run a business that creates an impact and is sustaining and isn't going to burn us out, isn't going to be like, one and done, but can like withstand the tests and the initiations and the trials and the challenges and the, predators or whatever, the challenges that come into that ecosystem and influence it over a period of time or over a lifetime, right? Like how do we build something that holds
term vision? And it's not just about like immediate results, it's about like the longer term vision and what we're working towards, what we're building. And looking outside of, obviously, like we've talked like around this idea a lot, but just like looking outside of like the patriarchal capitalist like structures that we've been in our whole lives. And I think there was a big collective awakening around that in the last few years. I know that I've learned so much and like unlearned and relearning, and I'm just like way more aware of a lot of like things that we take for granted as being true, and like that this is the only way to do things, and it's just so misguided. It's just so not true. And like looking back to I guess like pre-patriarchal cultures, and also like indigenous wisdom, and just like for like lack of a better like way of saying it, just like as like white people just like shutting up for a while and like listening, and like actually like listening and letting it change you. That has been so powerful. And I think that's where it's kind of coming around, where it's like I feel the most comfortable and the most like aligned in something like this now, where it's about like more of like a feminine way of leadership, like circular leadership. It's not about me, it's about like the collective. And that really feels like just why I'm here on earth.
Same.
We are. We're like on the same.
I know, we're like, okay, we keep like doing the coming back together at like pivotal moments. I hear you. Got it. Note taken. Yes, we get it. We see it. We see the pattern. And what was I going to say about that? There was something else that was like pinging me and I may have lost it. It's interesting. It's like this, I don't know what it was. I was trying to like trigger it by saying random words, but it didn't work. I'm like, it's so interesting. But yeah, it's really cool to see this sort of like unlearning and deconditioning and the the way of being that's emerging right now. And I think it's really reassuring to know, oh, I know what it was. It was this idea that you brought up about like longer term results and focusing on the long game. And I think the irony of that, right, is when we take that approach, actually what happens is we get like way better results in the short term as a byproduct versus focusing on like all of this pressure and how am I gonna, and it's similar when you're like gardening, you know, like I remember watching this video from, what's her name, Erin at Floret Farms. I'm sure you,
She's wonderful. Yeah.
she's amazing. Ben's
I
something.
can't say her last name.
I don't know her. I don't think I've said it out loud. Yeah. But I was watching her video and she was like pruning these dahlias and you have to like cut them like very early.
Feels
and
ruthless. Yeah.
feels ruthless and it feels like awful. And you're like, why would I do that? This is the only one I have. It's so beautiful. And then you see the field later in the year after she did that. And it's like you have 20 times more blooms or something crazy. And it's just like so abundant. And I feel like that's a lesson that I have to keep remembering in my own business and remind my clients of all the time, because we are so afraid to let go. We are so afraid of the death cycles because we don't know what's on the other side necessarily, unless we've done it before many times. And so it gets more, I feel like in my business right now, what I've been learning is really this like truly surrendered approach to like, I trust and know that this is bigger than me. And so I don't pretend that I'm the only one who can make things happen here, who needs to have the whole plan, like plans A through Z, backup plans. Like I am in this space of just like, I know I'm good. Like I've done this before, it happens and like it keeps getting better and spiraling upward. And so like, I don't need to have all the answers. I do have the plan. I'm grounded in it. And there's space for, you know, spontaneity, and there's space for magic to come in, and there's space for unexpected things. And there's space for more abundance than I could see when I created the plan.
Right. Like room for it to be even better than what you imagined, and just kind of all with an open hand and letting it kind of be what it wants to be, which is like, that kind of brings me back to like the Cross Quarter Club. And I know we had talked before about like the vision moving forward. And I feel like I've taken every step of it very slowly. Like it didn't even have a name for a while, but I was like, we're doing this thing. I don't know what we're doing, but we're on this path. And it's just been slowly evolving. And like, in addition to the like 4 seasonal gatherings that we do for the year, we're also doing field trips to local like botanical gardens and like native plant festivals and stuff. So we are going, for anyone that's anywhere near us, well, it doesn't matter where I am. We're going to Longwood Gardens, like outside of Philadelphia, on August 27th. So if anyone's interested in spending the day there with my little group of women, like DM me on Instagram and I'll get you on the list. I'm going to make our reservation here this week. But so field trips, just doing fun things together, like learning about plants, looking at beautiful flowers. And then the other thing I've been feeling really like pulled towards doing is, in addition to the 4 gatherings, having like a monthly women's circle, because I kind of started one like on Zoom in actually March of 2020, like late March of 2020. And it was like wonderful. And I was like, this is like, I'm like meant to do something like this. But it was like, you know, then the election came and I got pregnant and just nobody really had the bandwidth for it during like I think that was kind of like the darkest period of the pandemic.
Totally. Very intense.
Fall, winter of 2020. So I want to get back to that, and I want to do it in person, just like very casual, like in my backyard, no agenda. And like what you were saying, where it's like, you just show up, you hold the space, like, and we just ask like, how are you doing really? And answer honestly, and like learn how to be there for each other and really be like supportive and like fertile listeners, and not like rushing to like fix problems, and just, you know, like that is just what I'm like not even really thinking about like how I'm making money with these things, because like I'm just trying to do the things that I feel really inspired to do, and I'm kind of trusting that the rest will work itself out. Like I'll eventually get this course made and that
Mm-hmm.
would be great. But until then, I just want to focus on like living in this kind of like alignment and the like being led by my heart, and just
Mm-hmm.
trusting that that's going to take me, if I'm not going to be led astray if I just trust.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Preach. I feel the same. Like, yes, you're speaking such truth. It's so awesome. And what I love so much about this community of women too in the Woman Up membership is that like so many of you are thinking, so many of us are thinking about all of these things every day, but we're thinking about them differently. You know, we're thinking
Yeah.
about them in a way that maybe like you're not hearing online, or you're not like having the bigger conversation in a mainstream platform, but it's really like these deeper, more nuanced conversations that honor all of the multiple facets of like who we are as women, not just in the context of like, well, if you want to make six figures this year, then you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if you're not doing X, Y, and Z, then you're doing it wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
no, there are infinite ways to
Mm-hmm.
make six figures this year in your business. There are infinite paths to get to the same destination. There are so many different evolutions and things that need to happen within you and within your business, and maybe even within the world for things to like become even clearer. And how do we navigate the nuances of that path of bringing an idea to life, of creating a successful business that's profitable and sustainable? Like, how do we do that with impact and with ease, right? Because
Yeah.
we want to be creating something that's bigger than us. We want to be feeling like we're making a contribution, and we want to feel fulfilled by the work that we're doing, and know that it's not working against the other things in our lives that are important, like kids, or planning a wedding, or buying a house and decorating it, or whatever. Like, can all of these things be actually supportive of one another and build this really beautiful ecosystem of your business and your life as a whole human, with all of the things that you're interested in, curious about, whatever. That's why we have like a food and garden thread in Slack, because it was like one of the things that came up on our first meetup, that everybody was like, oh yeah, I'm like very into gardening, or like I love cooking, or let me share this recipe, or I have a drink recipe for our next meetup. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
just keep
totally.
creating things to feed the interests of all of us. It's so cool and fun.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I wanted to ask you too, because you're part of this community, what are you loving about it so far, or what had you like feel pulled to join us, besides me being like, I think you
Yeah.
need to be in here?
Exactly. So for me, so I feel really good like right now as far as like all these things. Like I've been on kind of
Mhm.
a journey this year or whatever, however you want to call it. But I think that I was hitting a point where I was feeling some of like the limiting beliefs kind of like setting in again. And I just knew that like it's the same thing like with like asking for help. Like I had gone like as far as I could go by myself with the knowledge I've had up till now, and like the people that I have around me right now. Like I love them all. They're very supportive, but I needed like an injection of like new ideas and new support, and also really important like seeing women that are doing more than I would even think is possible for me. Like I wanted to like
Mm,
fill my brain with that. Like I need to be seeing all these people like living out their dreams, but like doing it in like a really like intentional, sustainable, like thoughtful way, because I just kind of needed a little boost in like believing in myself, and like I've been trusting this whole year that this idea is taking me somewhere, but it's been hard to like, that's kind of like feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, okay, like I'm trusting, but it's like I haven't really felt as like grounded in that. And I think that that has been a shift since I joined like the Women Up community, and like even just the Elevate Your Year masterclass that you get when you join. Like I'm
mhm.
like 3/4 of the way through that, because it's like I don't have
It's
very much
long.
time at one time to do it, but I
Yeah,
every time I sit down to work on it, like I feel like I am making so much progress with like some of like
great.
my mindsets and my goals and all of that. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's just been a really good like perspective shift that I think I needed, because I've been in like
Mhm.
the fallow period and then the idea period. And now I just needed some like fertilizer, if you want to call it like that.
Oh my God, that's a
Yeah.
perfect way to put it. Yeah, it's like an infusion of like nutrients or something into what you're creating, whatever it is. I love that, like fertilizer. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. So
It's
it
like,
came
here
out
you
of
go.
time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. Thank you for putting words around that. That's such a great way to put it.
Of course. I'm glad. Yeah.
I love it. I'm so happy that you're part of this community and we get to like reconnect in this way at this moment in time. It sounds like we're on those parallel paths again, still, whatever, at these inflection
Somehow.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some way I don't
very
have to
cool.
understand it. It's just true.
Yeah, it is just true. Beautiful. And everybody can find you on Instagram and on your website.
Mhm.
And do you want to just say it?
Yeah. So I'm at Stevie Storck everywhere, and it's just steviestorck.com. So I'm Stevie like Stevie Nicks,
Mhm.
and then Storck is STORCK. So I'm on Instagram, kind of Facebook, Pinterest. You should follow me on Pinterest. I like being.
Ooh.
And then my website, of course, and my summer issue of my mid-season journal is coming at some point this week. As soon as it's ready,
Yay.
it's gonna be live. I just
Oh
have
my
to,
gosh.
go with the flow there. I've got 2 blog posts I'm still like polishing up. So
Cool. We'll post it in the Slack when you have it up and ready so we can all read it and like celebrate you and cheer you on and share it.
the pictures came out so good this time. I can't wait to share them too.
Oh, I'm sure that they did. It was so awesome. All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. And thanks everyone for tuning in. You can find more of these member spotlights on our Instagram page at WMNûp, and which is spelled WMNUP if you're listening, not reading it. And this was so much fun. Thank you so much, Stevie.
It was wonderful talking to you, Emily.
You
Have a good rest of
too.
your day.
You too.